It's becoming increasingly clear that the Raptors offense is at its best when Pascal Siakam is heavily involved, but if he's not a part of Toronto's future plans, now is the time to trade him, and a team that's prepared to potentially make this huge trade is the Sacramento Kings. Let's get into it. This is Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel that is completely dedicated to providing you with Toronto Raptors news coverage and videos just like this, as well as live stream watch parties for every Raptors game. If you like what you see from today's video, make sure to smash that like button. It makes a huge difference to the channel when you hit that like button. So go ahead, take a second out of your day and help us land in some more YouTube recommended pages. And if you want to see more Raptors content just like this, help me on my road to 16,000 subscribers by joining the Amateur Hour Army yourself. It was another sensational game against the Indiana Pacers for Pascal Siakam, who drops 36 points on some incredible efficiency from start to finish. Siakam was on it in this game, finishing inside, using his post moves and using his gravity in the post to draw in double teams and send out some key passes, especially late in the game, to put the Raptors over the line for the 132-131 victory. It's becoming very apparent the more we go into this season that the Raptors operate at their best offensively when Pascal Siakam is heavily involved in the offense. But there's been a certain resistance from Darko Rajakovic this season to involve Siakam. It's been a little bit strange at times where the Raptors are struggling so mightily to score. In 7 of the last 10 games, the Raptors have been down by 16 or more points at some point in the game. In 5 of their last 9 games, they've been down by 20 or more points at some point in the game. So it's difficult for the Raptors to consistently try and overcome these deficits, but the reason sometimes, and a lot of the times, that these games start to get out of hand is that the Raptors just have no consistent way of scoring. They struggle to find an easy way to get buckets when they need it most, but the easiest way for them to get those buckets when they need them most is involving Pascal Siakam. But there's been a reluctance to see that usage from Darko Rajakovic's perspective for some reason this season. And we have had a couple of games, one of them being that Indiana Pacers game, where right from the start, Siakam was a focal point of the way the Raptors wanted to play offense. The Raptors offense was flowing well. Siakam was playing extremely well. And when Siakam's playing well, that just brings a lot of attention to him, which allows more space for his teammates. But consistently, Siakam is the best offensive player on this team. As much as Scottie Barnes is coming into his own in a lot of senses this season, Siakam is still the top dog offensively in terms of ability. Siakam's bag in the post, Siakam's bag in isolation situations, that is superior right now to what Scottie Barnes has. But there seems to be a desire from the front office and from the coaching staff to involve Scottie Barnes more heavily this season, and it makes sense to do so. We want to build around Scottie Barnes for the future. We want Scottie Barnes to be the focal point going forward, and perhaps in some games that gives more of a backseat role to Pascal Siakam. So if that's going to be the case, where we're not going to be using Pascal Siakam to his full effectiveness on every night, and I'm not saying every night he's going to score 36 points efficiently, but certainly this is a player who has consistently averaged above 20 points per game. Last season, 24 points per game. This is certainly an elite scorer in the NBA, so if you're not going to use him as effectively as you can be to win as many games as possible, and it certainly seems as though from Darko's perspective that is the case this season, maybe the time is to move on from the player, especially considering the fact that Pascal Siakam is on an expiring contract. There's been no extension or re-signing discussions as of yet between Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster's front office, and Pascal Siakam and his agency. So if the desire is to not have Siakam a significant part of the future in Toronto, again, why not look to trade him at this point, especially with a team like the Sacramento Kings potentially interested in bringing in the player? There's been lots of questions about whether or not Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes can coexist successfully on the same team, and most of the discourse suggests that they cannot play together. They cannot be on the same team. I have a little bit of pushback to that. I believe they can operate together. Scottie Barnes has spoken very highly of Pascal Siakam in the past. In fact, coming into this season, Barnes spoke very highly of Pascal Siakam's abilities and their talents. We saw a little bit of the two-man game working for them in spots against the Indiana Pacers, but the biggest thing about them not working together necessarily isn't the fact that they can't play together. It's the fact that this team is not designed to heighten both of their abilities. Both of them are relatively non-shooters. Scottie Barnes starting to hit a bunch of threes this season, but don't possess huge threats from the outside, especially Pascal Siakam, who has been just diabolical from three so far this season. You need to have floor space around those guys. It's difficult for two more so non-shooters like Siakam and Barnes to exist on the same floor when also you have a guy like Jakob Poeltl who can't shoot at all. if they want to play together and you want to use them together, you probably need to have a bit of a stretch five involved in the team. But it's way harder to find a team that works around these two to be able to coexist successfully together. It's a lot easier to move from one of them and start to build around Scottie Barnes, especially considering the state of the current Raptors team where, yes, nice win against the Pacers, but let's be reminded of that game against the Orlando Magic where we got completely blown out against the Magic. And the Magic are a team who were rebuilding for the last 2 years. And it seems as though they've already lapped the Raptors in terms of ability this season, the way they've started the season especially, whereas the Raptors have kind of just treaded water for a little bit and have remained the same. We all understand that maybe it's time to hit a little bit of a reset in Toronto. That could be the case with Pascal Siakam, despite the fact that he's the best player on this team, despite the fact that he is the most consistent scorer on this team. It might be time to move on from the player with, again, the Sacramento Kings knocking on the door. The Sacramento Kings kind of maybe see a little bit of an opening in the Western Conference, and they want to make a big push. Lots of teams starting to rise up in the Western Conference. You never really know what the outlook is going to be, but the Kings, after finishing third in the Western Conference last season, might be ready to make that big splash to really heighten the level of this team because De'Aaron Fox is an all-NBA caliber player. He is an outstanding point guard. As much as De'Aaron Fox gets his credit finally and started getting a ton of credit last season, I still feel as though it wasn't enough credit for the way he was playing. Domantas Sabonis is an excellent player to pair along with him, and adding in the scoring relief of Pascal Siakam, I mean, that would just really take that team to a different level, especially when you consider the type of players that they would have to give up to make this deal happen. Now, going through salaries, going through what it would take here, yeah, the Kings could give the Raptors Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter. That would add on a lot of shooting, and that would make a big difference to the Raptors. That's something that I would consider as well, along with maybe a pick or two from the Kings. But maybe a little bit more realistically, the Raptors could be looking at bringing in somebody who can shoot like Harrison Barnes, bringing in a decent salary to compensate for this trade in Trey Lyles, who maybe has a little bit of upside coming off the bench, and perhaps some other shooting could be involved in the trade. But I am interested in the prospect of the Raptors acquiring Harrison Barnes in this deal. He's making solid money for the next 3 years. He fits the position Pascal Siakam is playing right now, adds on a good level of defense, and the most important thing is that he brings in spacing to the team. If you're going to be trading Pascal Siakam, you have to understand, first of all, you're not going to get a massive return because he's on an expiring contract. But if you're trading him, what you 100% absolutely need to be getting in return in this deal is some sort of shooting coming back to the team that is incredibly reliable from the outside. Harrison Barnes would provide that, as would Kevin Huerter. If either of them are the centerpiece in this trade, maybe you can add in some other shooters in some capacity in this trade. Getting Keegan Murray in this trade, by the way, is not going to happen, so we'll pump the brakes on that for anybody thinking that watching this video. But picks Harrison Barnes as the centerpiece of the trade package, balance out the salary. If the Kings want to make that move for Pascal Siakam, like, I love Pascal Siakam, I have doubts whether or not he is going to be on this team next season. I do not want to lose him for free. And if the season is going the way that so far it's gone, where we're going to be right around the middle of the pack, why not really hone in on Scottie Barnes' skills and his development, try to get the most out of him? To get the most out of Scottie Barnes, give him as close to a 5-out offense as you can. Scottie Barnes, the ball handler, maybe have him as a driving kick weapon. Adding in shooters is going to allow Scottie Barnes to be a different level. Look, this sort of trade is likely going to make the Raptors worse this season. Not a great sign when you don't have a first-round pick, but maybe the season won't be as much of a loss if you are getting more out of Scottie Barnes and his development. So if the Raptors are keen on not having Pascal Siakam a part of the future of this team, consider he's on an expiring contract. If the Sacramento Kings are really knocking on the door trying to get this player, and there's been reports as well they're interested in OG Anunoby, perhaps come off that Pascal Siakam salary, bring in some floor spacers to this team that's going to allow the team to make more sense out there, to allow Darko Rajakovic to play the brand of offense that he wants to play, and get more out of Scottie Barnes. If you can do that, trade Siakam, recoup some draft assets in the process, that seems like as much of a win as you could hope for in a situation given what's going on with Pascal Siakam. But as far as his ability, this isn't a discredit to Siakam's ability. If you know this channel, you know I love Pascal Siakam. I've spoken very highly of him in this video already. But again, I'm worried about asset management. I'm worried about losing this player completely for free. And if we're focusing on Scottie Barnes, then let's really focus in on Scottie Barnes and get the most out of him. this is a type of trade that could help us do that. So what do you make of this whole Pascal Siakam situation? Do you want him to stay? Do you want him to get traded? If so, do you like the deal that I have in place potentially with the Sacramento Kings? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That's all for me today. Smash that like button if you did enjoy. Make sure you're subscribed to Amateur Sports for more Raptors content, and I'll see you again very soon for another video.